say that athletes have the challenge of pushing through the pain. So what happens is because of the high intensity training that they cannot afford to not be training.
What patterns do you see in office workers compared to athletic patients? I mean, you've already talked about people like hunched over, the kind of injury. Of course, sometimes office workers are also weekend warriors. So, yeah.
Because we're not designed, in my opinion, to be sitting all day on a chair. So they develop that postural stiffness, that long-lasting strain on their bodies, and it becomes a chronic issue.
Fantastic. So, I think what we'd now like to do is to dive into osteopathy in sports injury recovery and some other practical applications. So, at A to Z Elite Health and Performance, you've been privileged to be in contact with Olympic athletes, Olympic level athletes. So, what unique challenges do sports people as a whole present?
I would say that athletes have the challenge of pushing through the pain. So what happens is because of the high intensity training that they cannot afford to not be training, or they cannot afford to not be using their body. So I think it's very tricky to finding that balanced performance and also recovery. So that's the unique challenge. Is it's very tricky to combine the two, making sure that they're not out of training, but at the same time they're not making their injury worse. So there is a fine balance between the two. So you have to be there, present, watching, monitoring, and making them feel worse.
Feel worse, right, right. And so, boy, there are so many examples of this, aren't there, of sports people, athletes doing that, and even, frankly, in people who aren't quote professional athletes but weekend warriors,
No.
and just keep going. So, I mean, I know I've had that issue with a knee injury I had, and just I didn't want to not go and
Okay.
ski.
Yeah, everybody.
Oops, that wasn't a good idea.
Exactly. Well, it happened. The same happened to me with a jiu-jitsu injury.
Yeah,
I injured myself doing martial arts, and I kept walking on it, and it turned out to be a stress fracture.
yeah.
And I just kept going and kept going, and now I'm paying the price because I'm still injured a month after. But um, I was so impatient to go back so quickly
Yeah.
that it actually made me worse. So I should have taken it a bit more easy.
Yes, absolutely. So, physician, heal thyself.
I know.
Sandy, how do you balance performance recovery with injury prevention in athletes, which you've just touched on? What would you do?
I think the main thing is to really, as I said, monitor. So you have to do ongoing monitoring, progressive rehab, and then just be careful about the load management. But you have to be careful about the tight window and make sure that the monitoring remains daily so that you do not overload a specific joint or muscle. And so that's why it's priceless to be there and then watch and monitor and then constantly review the numbers, the numbers, the numbers.
Okay. What eh, what patterns do you see in office workers compared to athletic patients? I mean, you've already talked about people like hunched over, the kind of injury. Of course, sometimes office workers are also weekend warriors. So, yeah. Well,
I think very much so is a postural habit that office workers have because we're not designed, in my opinion, to be sitting all day on a chair. So they develop that postural stiffness, that long-lasting strain on their bodies, and it becomes a chronic issue. Rather than athletes, the main problem is an acute issue because of a high intensity movement. Therefore, it's slightly different because for them it would be instant, and it is because of something very specific. Whilst an office worker would be something that would be quite gradual and that you will see over time. That's why they don't feel it straight away. And they come and they say, I'm not sure why my back hurts or why my
yeah.
shoulders hurt.
Or I'm having recurrent headaches,
Exactly.
whatever it might be. So, going back to sports, can you give us an example of a sports injury case that gave you an aha moment that taught you something unexpected?
I would say a hamstring tear that was linked to old ankle sprain, because it's very interesting how the body stores old patterns. So it starts with, let's say, a simple ankle sprain, and then the body starts to have compensatory patterns. So we start using the body very differently, and it turns
So
out that
like an antalgic gait,
antalgic gait, or the way the person is now recruiting other muscles because the ankle or the calf muscles are not supporting as well. And then later down the line, you realize that they've got a hamstring tear because of it. So I think it's very important to always understand the story in the consultation and what happened. Sometimes I ask people, "Oh, do you have any history of injuries, any history of fractures, any history of surgeries?" And they often say, "Yes, but I don't think it's relevant." Yes, it is relevant, because an old story or an old injury can actually impact on what you have today.
Right, right. Okay. Well, great point. So, patient education in preventing repeat injuries. How? I'm sure it's obviously important, but what sort of things do you do to educate people?
Now I know it better after I injured myself with the jiu-jitsu. Before that, I was just preaching to people, but now that I have been through that myself, I understand the importance of resting the first few weeks, understanding the why you have to rest, understanding the why you cannot load too quickly, understanding the why you have to do certain things or not do others. So I think often we think we know, oh, my body tells me that I can do this or not. No, you are weak, your body is injured, and your body is hurting. You have to allow the healing process to happen. And for this to happen, you have to also allow your body to rest. So I think one of my main issues for myself, for example, is I was feeling less pain, therefore I wanted to walk again. But that's not it. The body was not recovered, the body was not healed. So I think it's very important to explain to patients why they need to have that resting period, why they need to have a restriction on certain movements, why they need to be patient, and when they can start doing certain things over some others. So yes, patient education is quite important, because I think when they understand the why, they're less likely to injure themselves again.